Hi guys, are you familiar with this book? I'm guessing you are. The first of the Harry Potter series, and as you can see, also the shortest one. This is the first Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone first book versus this is the seventh and final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now, obviously, it doesn't take a lot of intense mathematics to recognize that the first book is quite a bit shorter than the last book. Also, I can see from looking in the table of contents that the last book really just has a lot more chapters than the first book. So I can see all of those things. I know this book has way more chapters, but I was also kind of curious if the reading level increased at all from the first book to the last book. So obviously I know, hold on, my face is and there we are. Obviously, I know that the seventh book is just longer in general. It has more chapters, but I was curious whether or not the last book also had longer chapters, not just more chapters, but in general, are the chapters longer? So this page here, actually, first of all, let's go back to the table of contents for a moment, and let's make sure we get that filled in. Make absolutely certain that this is what your table of contents looks like by now. Even if you want to, also, I put a little gap here. Some people, if you like a little bit more organized, you could label this part as week 1 so that you know, okay, that's all the stuff we did in week 1 of the term, and now we've moved on to week 2. So you already have watched this video and filled out page 7. You've tried this MLE, comparing data, and if you're ever asking yourself, like, what does Ms. McGowan do with her week now? I look at all of your work. I look at these MLEs and I go back and I put comments on things. So please do me a favor and go back and look at those and read my comments, because since I can't be in class with you saying, oh, here's the mistake you made here, here's the mistake you made here, because that's a huge part of what I do, I'm doing it in comments on these. If you make mistakes on any of these, I'll go back and I'll put comments telling you why. So make sure you have this written down next. Statistics, project, example. And I wrote standard 2 in parentheses here because we're doing an example together on page 9, all about the first versus 7th Harry Potter books. And then you guys are going to work through the next few pages preparing yourselves for your own statistics project. Okay, so this is an example for you on page 9. And then by the time you're all the way done with page 10, you will have gone through this whole process with your own data. And guess what? That page 10, when you're finished with that, will count for your assessment this week. That's the part that will go on your grade, is your project. So with that in mind, let's go back to page 9. And I am going to model for you exactly how I want you to set this all up. Now, on page 9, you're copying all of my stuff. So on page 9, you want to make sure you call it your statistics project example. So make sure you have that as your title. The very first thing you're going to do on this page, and then when you do your own, is you are going to tell me which 2 populations you're comparing. You have to pick 2. And you have to make sure these 2 populations, you're obviously not going to get all the information for all of the entire population. You're going to gather 15 pieces of data. Now, when you're picking your 2 populations, you have to make sure that the data you gather is what we call numerical. Make sure it's data that you'll get with numbers. It wouldn't be something like, I'm going to throw the ball and I'm going to see if my dog catches it, because that kind of data is what we call categorical. That's yes or no data. Yes, they caught it. No, they didn't. Now, yeah, you could tally it up and get numbers, but you need data that will give you 15 numbers, numerical data. Okay, so first you have to decide what you want to compare. And as I just told you, I was curious about the first versus the last Harry Potter book. So I wrote a sentence here that starts with these 3 words, and I underlined it in green because your first sentence needs to also start with these 3 words. So my sentence says, I am comparing the length of the chapters in the first Harry Potter to the length of the chapters in the last or 7th Harry Potter. The length of the chapters is a page number, so that's numerical. I know I can get numbers from this. 17 pages, 25 pages, 13 pages, 17 pages, numerical. I know I can get numerical data from this. You do need to write all of this down, so feel free to pause the video at any point you need to. So your first step in this project is going to be 2 populations. Right now, you're writing down my example with me. So these are the 2 populations I'm comparing. The length of the chapters in Harry Potter 1 versus the length of the chapters in Harry Potter 7. So that's step 1, is just decide, what do I want to compare? okay? Your next step is, once you decide what you want to compare, you are then going to make a prediction. That's a guess as to what you think will happen. And my prediction, because this book is so much longer, I'm going to predict, and again, I underline those words because this part needs to start with these two words, I predict, that the chapters in the 7th Harry Potter will be longer than those in the first. I'm not just predicting, obviously I know this one has more chapters, but I'm making a prediction that the chapters in this one are shorter and the chapters in this one are longer, okay? That's the second thing you'll do. So once you decide on your two populations, before you get any data, you're gonna make a prediction, a guess. What do you think is gonna happen? And there's really no right or wrong here, this is just what you think. Step number 3, after you've picked your two populations and wrote your sentence, I am comparing, after you've made a prediction, now you're ready to gather data. And I did that, and you're gonna write this down with me. So step number 3 is 2 sets of data. You might need to pause the video here to get this all written down. I just focused on, because I'm gonna ask you to get at least 15 pieces of data. Exactly 15 is good. You can get more than that if you want, but please don't get less than that. I just did the first 15 chapters in the Sorcerer's Stone, and I called that Harry Potter 1. This is not them in order. I've already put them in numerical order. And so you might want to gather it on a separate sheet of paper and then on here just put it in order for yourself. Like I think the first chapter was 17 pages or something like that. So this is not chapters 1 through 15 in order. This is all for the first 15 chapters, then put in order of their size. So within the first 15 chapters of Harry Potter 1, the smallest chapter, the shortest chapter was 12 pages and the longest chapter was 27. So this blue list of numbers right here is the first 15 chapters, how long they are in pages of Harry Potter 1. This is the first 15 chapters of Harry Potter 7, The Deathly Hallows. Again, not in order of the chapters, in order of their numerical value. Okay, so you got two populations. What are you comparing? Make your prediction, and then you actually gather your data. When you do this on your own, yours will be something different, but this is mine. So everybody write this down on page 9. After you actually have your data, you are going to get the 5-number summary. So remember, the 5-number summary means, and I'll mark a couple things in here so that we can refresh our memories on this. The 5-number summary means I go to the middle, exact middle, and then I go to the middle of the bottom half and the middle of the top half. So 15, half of that would be 7.5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the median of Harry Potter 1. Down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the median of Harry Potter 7. Then I need the lower quartile. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the upper quartile, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Same position down here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now you're going to make a list, okay? So the next step in your work here, in your project, will be to get your 5-number summary, okay? And I just found all of those, I circled them, and then the only other thing I need is the min and the max. So I listed these down here. This is Harry Potter 1, min, first quartile, median, third quartile, maximum, and this is Harry Potter 7. The minimum and the maximum are in there too. Remember, minimum is just the lowest, maximum the highest. One of the first things I notice is that they have the same min and the same max. So that's interesting. We'll talk about what that means in a second. So just to recap, you're going to first tell me what are the two populations you want to compare. Then you're going to make a prediction. Then you're going to gather your data. Then with your data, which is at least 15 numbers for each set, you're going to give me a 5-number summary. Then, and this part I haven't quite finished all of yet because I just wanted to draw it together and make sure we remember everything about this. Your next step is, of course, if you got a 5-number summary, it's because you're going to draw box plots. Okay, so look at how I stacked this up here. So I've got my 5-number summary here. I wrote this section, and when you do your real project on page 10, feel free to follow this exact setup. You can label these things on the side and just make sure you have it all. So I counted down, in case you're wondering exactly where I put this. I took with my black pen here and I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, and I drew out my number line. And I really did draw every single one from 12 up to, I went up to 28 because I was actually marking these. I went 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, and then I went back and marked the ones in between. So again, you can pause if you need a second to draw that. And then I skipped a line and wrote HP 1 for Harry Potter 1 and skipped a line and wrote HP 7 for Harry Potter 7. So now I'm ready to actually draw these. So Harry Potter 1 is going to go on this line. So I've got my minimum at 12, my first quartile at 14, and that one I'll make go all the way on the space since I know it's the bottom of my box. My median is 17, and my quartile 3 is 20, and my max is up here at 27. I'm going to finish this box, and then I'm going to draw this whisker down here and this whisker all the way up here. That box plot represents the length of the chapters in the first Harry Potter book. Now, for the 7th Harry Potter book, I have the same min, 12. Quartile 1 goes up to 16, so that's about right here, if I'm lining that up correctly. Median of 22, it's about right here. Quartile 3 is 25, and the max is also 27. So here is my box, and this is kind of interesting. One of the first things I notice is that the actual overall plots themselves, all the way from whisker to whisker, they are the same. So that's kind of interesting, and we'll give a name for that in a second. One more thing I really should put on this box plot is I should put a label here and tell myself that this is number of pages. That's what those values are. That's how many pages are in those chapters. So I really should have a label on my number line so I know what are those numbers. Are they number of pages? Are they, and I'll give you a couple more examples of if you need some ideas on how do I gather data when I'm stuck at my house, okay? I'll give you some more examples here. This was something that was easy for me to do because I have these books. And if you want to take this idea and you want to compare 2 other books and the length of their chapters, you can totally do that, but they have to be different books than what I did. There is one more step here though. So we've picked our 2 populations, we made a prediction, we gathered our 2 sets of data, we made a 5-number summary, and we drew some box plots. The last step is conclusions. You have to write at least 3 conclusions. That means, okay, what did you find out from all of this? You were interested in comparing the length of the chapters in Harry Potter 1 to Harry Potter 7, and what does this show me? What do I see here? So I'm going to put conclusions here. And the first conclusion I had is that the 2 books have the same range of 15 pages, 27 minus 12. They have the exact same range. So that's kind of interesting. That does tell me that they did try to stay. Maybe there's a certain amount that she kind of stuck with and was like, I'm just going to make sure all my chapters are between 12 and 27 pages long. And that would be pretty common, okay? The next conclusion I made is that Book 1 has an IQR of 6, and Book 7 has an IQR of 9. That means Book 7, remember IQR is the size of the box. Harry Potter 7 does have a bigger box than Harry Potter 1. So even though the overall range is the same, the fact that Harry Potter 7 has a bigger box means that Book 7 does have a little more variation. It has more spread in its page numbers. That means where Harry Potter 1, yeah, everything technically was between 12 and 27, but this little box here tells me that 50% of those chapters were really between 14 and 20, where 50% of these chapters were really between 16 and 25. So a little bit more variation, a little bit more spread there. Bigger IQR. There's my second conclusion. And one more conclusion I had from looking at this is Book 7 has a higher Q1, median, and Q3. So even though the min and the max are the same, the fact that all of this part, particularly the median, was higher, it does tell me that in general, Book 7 does have a little bit longer chapters. So the range is the same, but because all 3 of those values on Harry Potter 7 are higher than all 3 of those values on there, seems my prediction was correct that Harry Potter 7 does have a little bit longer chapters. So what are you going to do? How are you going to get this project together? Your official project will go on page 10, and it should look just like mine when you're done, just with different data. So your 2 populations are just going to be something different. So what are some ideas of what you could compare? Well, you could compare, I'm going to pick 15 items from my pantry, and I'm going to see how many grams of sugar are in them. And then I'm going to pick 15 items from my fridge, and I'm going to see how many grams of sugar are in those. And maybe you're interested in comparing, are there more grams of sugar in stuff that's in the pantry, or are there more grams of sugar for stuff that's in the fridge? That could be something at your house that you can gather that data. Another way to get some good data is the internet. That's an easy place to do some research. Maybe you're curious about if the Utah Jazz basketball players, are they taller or shorter than another basketball team? That information is available online. You can Google the heights of basketball players and it's all right there by team. So you decide what two sets of data you are interested in comparing. What is interesting to you? Just make sure that when you gather that data, make sure that you are able to get numerical data. That means stuff in numbers. And that's why I said things like grams of sugar, that would be numbers in 15 different food items. The height of basketball players, that would be numbers. Okay, so pick some data that's interesting to you. And as you click next, you're gonna, before you gather any data, you are going to tell me in a discussion, what are you going to compare? And I will comment on yours and let you know if I think that's gonna work. If I don't think it's gonna work because it's not numerical or something, I'll let you know and I'll help you come up with some ideas on what you can do. So your next choice right now is just, what do you want to compare? Okay, so have fun with it.